During the making of this video, former NASCAR Xfinity Series winner Michael Annett passed away at age 39. Rest in peace, Michael. The NASCAR playoffs have done a lot of screwing drivers over, to say the least. The format has led to countless undeserving champions and placed drivers who wouldn't be racing for a title into the conversation. This happens just about every year. Whether it's dominating drivers being unable to perform when the lights are the brightest, or a driver who did perform in the finale losing because of factors outside of their control, playoffs have created a lot of great moments, but have also created moments that just make you sad and upset. So today, I'll go through the top 5 most heartbreaking playoff losses in the sport's history. Before we get into it, this list is just my opinion. There's been a lot of heartbreak caused by this format, and you could swap out anything in this list for something you think is more gut-wrenching, and I really wouldn't argue against you. With that out of the way, let's get started. Kevin Harvick had a stellar year in 2020. He won 9 out of the 36 races, meaning with every 4 starts he made that season, he won 1 of them. It was a dominant season in every sense of the word. With an average finish of 7.3, he was more than deserving of the championship. But as we've seen, a couple bad playoff races can and will end your season. He found himself on the playoff bubble heading into Martinsville after problems at Texas, and in the final laps of said race, he needed to get past Kyle Busch in order to make the Final Four. In a last-ditch effort to get the spot, he spun out Busch, and in doing so, broke the number 1 rule of stock car racing.
Well, rule number 1 of stock car racing is learn how to wreck someone without wrecking yourself.
This was the last season that Harvick had a legitimate chance at a championship before SHR began to fall off a cliff, and I truly think he had a lot left in him that wasn't able to be seen because the equipment was so bad. The eventual championship was won by Chase Elliott, who would go on to get screwed out of his own championship in 2022. What goes around comes around, I guess. The racing gods seem to be doing everything in their power to stop Connor Zilisch from winning the 2025 Xfinity title. He'd get injured after a hard crash at Talladega, then go on to get an even worse injury after falling off his car while celebrating a win at Watkins Glen. Despite this, he could not stop winning. He won 10 times in 2025, one of which he wasn't even driving the car at the finish, and scored 23 top 10s in 33 races. He cruised all the way to the Final Four against Carson Kvapil, Justin Allgaier, and Jesse Love. And despite the latter having less top 5s than Connor Zilisch had wins, he was the one who walked away with the title after passing Zilisch late and winning the race. Jesse Love is an incredible prospect, but I truly think Zilisch could potentially be on the level of Kyle Larson in only a few years, if that. Zilisch won all those races at just 18 years old. So even though this is devastating, he'll have plenty more chances to win the championship. Unlike Carl Edwards wouldn't have been the champion under full season points in 2016, but oftentimes the mechanism of losing is what brings the heartbreak. You can be up 33-0 in the 3rd quarter, but when you choke a surefire win, that's often more heartbreaking than a back-and-forth slugfest. And by 2016, Carl Edwards was one of those drivers who probably should have a championship but doesn't. Jimmie Johnson won 5 championships in a row from 2006 to 2010. Johnson could win under the chase format like no other driver has before or since. But in the process, it ripped a lot of championships from a lot of drivers. Mark Martin, Denny Hamlin, and Edwards were all active and racing for championships during this time, and none of them were able to topple that 48 car. After getting a helping hand from Mother Nature in the round of 8 at Texas, Edwards qualified for the championship 4 alongside Kyle Busch, Jimmie Johnson, and Joey Logano at Homestead Miami Speedway. The infamous moment this race is most known for is one of my first memories of NASCAR as a kid. The first 2 being this, which I had on DVD and watched all the time even after it happened, and this was actually pretty cool to me as a 6-year-old. Anyway, Carl Edwards had the best car out of everyone in the Final Four, and he was in 2nd place, highest amongst them, when Dylan Lupton blew a tire coming out of turn 2. This probably didn't need to be a caution, but on the following restart, you know what happens.
Al Larson, the outside. Carl Edwards on the inside. Green flag back in the air. They're blocking. You're going elbow. Carl Edwards into the wall. He got tagged by the 22. Big hits by the 19. And the caution comes back out again.
Carl Edwards was one of my favorite drivers at the time, so this was the first little bit of heartbreak I watched live as a sports fan. Edwards would retire following the race and would never race at any level again. The reason for retirement probably has a lot more to do with the illegitimacy of the sport than anything, but the fact that this is the last time that we saw Carl Edwards in a cup car really sucks and leaves a bad taste in my mouth. The only good thing that came out of this situation is that it gave us Jimmy Johnson's record-tying 7th championship and one of the greatest announcer calls I've ever seen in a NASCAR race.
Jimmy Johnson through 3 and 4. Make room. Richard Petty and Dale Earnhardt. There's another 7-time champ. Jimmy Johnson wins his 7th NASCAR Sprint Cup championship.
Damn, we all make fun of Rick Allen, but he is a hell of a commentator. This really could just be the big three collectively at number 2, but I think Truex is the one I'll put on this list. The big three is a nickname given to Martin Truex Jr., Kyle Busch, and Kevin Harvick, who together completely kicked everyone else's ass in the 2018 season. And none of them would end up being the champion. We begin this story at Martinsville, where the big three were already sitting pretty, all of whom were already pretty much locked into the Final Four. Over the course of the final run, Joey Logano was out front, and Truex, knowing he's better, races Joey with the patience of a saint, methodically trying to pass him, never touching him, finally getting by on the white flag. And this was how Logano repaid the favor.
Champion, will he get the bumper? Yes, he does. Here comes Logano. Logano on the inside. A drag race. They're sideways. And it's going to be Logano getting the win.
Truex, as you can imagine, wasn't too happy and had this to say about it after the race.
May won the battle, but he ain't win the damn war.
That's it?
That's it.
So he's not going to get there. You're not going to win the championship.
He ain't.
How do you retaliate?
I'm just not going to let him win it. I'm going to win it.
In the final race, Truex and Logano had the best cars all day. And despite Truex declaring that Logano wouldn't win the war, Logano would in fact win the war. For the big three, but especially Truex, this was just a slap in the face. Your rival, who you have been better than all year in every way, has just wrecked you to get to his spot and then beaten you for the title. On top of that, Truex's team, Furniture Row Racing, is shutting down after this race. This was the team that had saved his career. The team he had joined in 2014 when his career was knocking on death's door. The team he had built up into a strong contender. You know he wanted to end things off on a high note for his team, and it just wasn't meant to be. I could probably put Denny Hamlin on this list 5 times, and it would still make a legitimate list. If you took the unrewarded dominance of Kevin Harvick, the constant screwovers that happened to Cousin Carl, and the bitter defeats of Martin Truex, and threw them all into one driver, you would end up with Denny Hamlin. I really don't think anyone has ever gotten fucked over by the system as much as he has during his career. He lost a barn burner in 2010 by causing a wreck and getting involved in it. In 2017, in a late season playoff race at Martinsville, he spun Chase Elliott from the lead and costed him his first win. I might get flack for this, but this moment is when everyone began to hate Denny Hamlin, and then he became fun to hate later on. In the penultimate race at Phoenix, Elliott squeezed him into the wall, which cut down one of his tires a few laps later and ended his championship aspirations. In 2019, he made it all the way to the Final Four, but was forced to make an unscheduled pit stop after one of his crew members put a giant piece of tape on his grill, which then overheated his engine and forced him to come back in. In 2022, Him and Ross Chastain had been in a heated rivalry all season, and in the penultimate race of that season, he was well on his way to making the Final Four when Ross Chastain did his wall ride, which bumped Denny out of the Final Four. A year later, he'd lose to crappy-ass parts at Homestead, and by now you might be thinking this guy is cursed. Which he might be, it's literally become a meme. But I don't think he got screwed over quite as bad as he did in 2025. There might be a bit of recency bias here, but I'm standing by this. He had it. He was only a few laps away from finally winning that damn championship, and a late race yellow and a bad pit call made him lose out to Kyle Larson, who he's also had beef with in the past. Will Denny ever win a title? I hope so. I'm gonna say probably not, but I really hope I'm wrong about that. Because when you get kicked in the teeth over and over again, it just makes climbing to the top that much sweeter. Thanks for watching.